As all this big money starts coming into crypto, we got hedge funds, we got Warren Buffett, the second oldest bank, some of this big traditional money. Is that part of what you think is going to hold us down for the next 3 to 4 months? Is that as they accumulate because we've got these prices down? Does that play into your analysis at all?
So I think it's important to realize that when you're looking into a history textbook, you're not seeing it through the eyes of the people that lived through the history. You're seeing it through the eyes of the people that have already experienced the history and are able to go back and document it. Let me ask you a question.
Hey,
Do all of the major movements in history, even the very beginning, that is normally very small, does that show up on the front page of the newspaper? Or does the inflection point show up on the 13th page of the newspaper, and then 20 years later, everybody realizes how important that one moment was, and they write it down in the history textbook, and everybody forgot about what was on the front page, because what was on the front page, when the author wrote it, he didn't have the discernment to know what was going to happen off in the distance. We are seeing so many things happen right now that are back on 13th, 14th, 15th pages of websites. And for the longest time, we didn't realize how important it was. But now we're nearly 13 years into this game, and some of these things are coming to the front page. We're moving through something called a bell curve of adoption. Whenever you go into the adoption of anything, an S-curve forms, where people go in and they buy slowly and slowly, and then faster, and then all at once, and then all of a sudden everybody has indoor plumbing, everybody has internet, everybody has phones in their pocket. But it didn't start that way. It didn't start quickly, and it didn't begin that way. What happened is that you saw a bunch of tiny little innovations. You saw Bitcoin get launched and nobody heard about it. You saw Mt. Gox get hacked and nobody that was in the space knew about it. Then you see 2017 happen, a landmark instance, and you start seeing these inflection points, but they're only known to be inflection points with the benefit of hindsight. What we're seeing right now are all kinds of little movements that don't seem like a big deal right now, and so they're not stirring the pot at the moment. We're not necessarily seeing the price move, even though El Salvador is adopting Bitcoin, even though Paraguay and some of these other countries are moving into it. We're not necessarily seeing the price because one of the oldest banks in the world is getting involved in crypto. We're not necessarily seeing the price move because of Warren Buffett. And by the way, I don't think that's a trend that's going to change relatively soon, because traders, and especially all the newer people in the cryptocurrency space, tend to be very emotional, and we tend to make a lot of trades based on what is big and flashy and hype, such as Elon Musk talking sweet nothings in our ear about Bitcoin, or the opposite, and causing the market to tank. We tend to like emotional stories. That is what gets clicks, so that's what the media reports. It's not as interesting to say, oh, well, this little technological development on Lightning Network, or this little proof of history development on Solana, or this little backwater thing going on in this project. It's not as interesting. It's not as enticing to the average viewer. But what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a ton of those. We're seeing a plethora of them. Yes, we're seeing Warren Buffett start to move in the direction of working with companies that are in blockchain and cryptocurrency. But that is just one of many minor steps that we're taking on a very long journey. And what a lot of people do is they zoom in and they look at each footprint and they say, oh, well, that isn't very interesting. And they forget to zoom out and realize that those footsteps have been leading in the same direction for the last 13 years, and their destination is clear. We might not know exactly how we're going to get there, but the fact of the matter is we are. What I encourage people to do is to take a wider perspective, have faith in the process, understand the fundamentals and the technical, so you have an all-encompassing view of this. And yes, pay attention to the day-to-day, pay attention to the news, but most importantly, remember that you don't know it all. And in 20 years, you're going to look back and you're going to say, dang it, I wish I had to put my attention on what mattered in the long run, rather than worrying so much about the day-to-day news articles that drop the price or rally the price super quickly. And I would have been much better off if I had have just invested in the long run, took my trading opportunities, and been happy with that. It's my take.
Oh, I got a real good feeling. Got a real good feeling.